The federal government says the increase in the pump price of petrol is not the fault of the federal government. The petroleum minister says the current price of petrol is a reflection of the global crude oil price and that the increase will be difficult for a while, but it will pay off in the long run. And an election monitoring group, Yaga Africa, has predicted about 9 hotbeds for violence in the Edo governorship election and the fear of a low turnout at the polls. Hello everyone and welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloye in Lagos, your host tonight on the show. An election monitoring group, Yaga Africa, is predicting that there might be low voter turnout in the Edo governorship election. The group addressed the press today in Abuja, where they also feared that about 9 local government areas in the state are potential hotbeds for violence.
Personalities as opposed to issue-based campaigns. The long-term observers reported incidences of violent, verbal and physical attacks, identity-based violence, fake news mongering and hate speech rhetoric employed as campaign strategies by both parties for campaigns. The observers also reported the repositioning of cult groups as political merchants for the election in some LGAs. While INEC activities for the election have commenced in earnest in some local government areas, observers reported low public sensitization, especially on the new voters' code of conduct for elections during COVID-19. In addition, observers reported sexual and gender-based violence in some of the LGAs in the state. Yaga Africa fears that the spate of violence and insecurity in the pre-election period may discourage voters from turning up to vote on election day.
Well, to some issues relating to the controversy over the issues of employment in the country. The Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Mr. Festus Keyamo, says no governor can hold the federal government to ransom on the Special Public Works Program, which seeks to employ 774,000 Nigerians temporarily. Mr. Keyamo was responding to the decision of the Rivers State government to pull out of the program after alleging that it has been hijacked by the All Progressives Congress APC in Rivers State.
We have just properly understood the roles we have to play, all parties in this matter. So we put that we're working harmoniously. The whole intention of everybody, all the actors in this program now, both the National Assembly, the executive, and is just to ensure the success of this program. Because at the end of the day, it is our own constituents that will enjoy and benefit from this program. They're ordinary Nigerians that will benefit. So if anybody says he won't participate and all that, it's the it's those people who say they won't participate. It is not them that will get the money. They are Nigerians, people within their state. So when a state governor says I will not participate, it does not mean that the people in that state will not benefit. It's a federal government project. All he's saying in that situation is that he will not nominate and recommend certain persons. It's a privilege, it's not a right. But the people in that state will benefit. But somebody cannot hold the federal government to ransom to say, I will not participate on you, give me so and so numbers.
So much to chew tonight, but our attention tonight is about the price of fuel, and we look at what has happened under the Buhari government, what is happening globally, and the reasons behind the increase in the price of fuel, especially the premium motor spirit, PMS, popularly called petrol. Tonight, we have a panel to discuss that. But first, here are some of your political stories on our political roundup tonight.
The Ebonyi State Governor Dave Umahi has sworn in the newly elected local government chairman in the state. The swearing-in ceremony took place at the Ecumenical Center, Abakaliki, the state capital. He asked the newly elected local government chairmen to render their services to the people, noting that their legacies will speak for them when they leave office.
What a wonder.
Governor Yahaya Bello has reassured the people of Kogi State of his commitment to put the development of the state above any other interest. He made this known while addressing the crowd that welcomed him in Lokoja after his victory at the Supreme Court. He then called on other political parties to join his administration to take the state to the next level.
Let us come together, including those that are in the other political parties.
And the former chairman of the Pension Reform Task Team, Abdul Rashid Maina, is asking the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, to review the criminal charges against him. Mr. Maina was arraigned on 12 counts of money laundering by the EFCC on October 25, 2019, after he was accused of being involved in pension fraud running into over 100 billion naira. However, in a letter dated August the 31st and addressed to the AGF, Mr. Maina, through his counsel Edwin Inegedu, described his prosecution as a witch hunt by the EFCC.
Thank you so much, everyone. So let's get to our conversation tonight, shall we? The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Temipre Silva, says the increase in the price of petrol is not a fault of the federal government. Mr. Silva says the current price of the petrol is a reflection of global crude oil price, but he adds that the deregulation of the petroleum subsector will be difficult for a while, but will pay off on the long run. Mr. Silva said this during a briefing in Abuja. He noted that the government no longer controls the price of the product. According to him, the Nigerian government spends over $1 trillion naira yearly as subsidy payment, explaining that the high cost of petrol and of the logistics on that forced the government to allow market forces to determine the prices of the product. And so tonight, that is our conversation and what we shall be discussing. We've been hearing and getting reactions across board on the increase and what has caused it and perhaps the effect on an average Nigerian. So what my panel will be doing for us is to give their views. But tonight, I have my panel of different political leanings. So they might be discussing it from their own political party leanings and the way forward for Nigeria. I have from our Abuja studio, Dr. Kach Ononuju is a member of the People's Democratic Party and an economist. Thank you, Dr. Ononuju, for your time tonight. How do you react to the news of the fact that, well, we'll have a new price regime for petrol? It was based on speculations yesterday when the word came in at first, but we're getting clarity on some of the issues when the minister has briefed the press now to say this is what is happening. But he did say it is not a fault of the government. This is due to the market forces. Your reaction, Dr. Ononuju?
Thank you very much. For a very long time, we have been asking the government to remove itself from the effective disruptions in the petroleum markets, but the government has refused. And every time they will tell us that they are removing their hands, they're allowing for deregulation. But then the behaviors that we see in a deregulated market is the markets that actually do suggest and put prices. But in this case, it is the Nigerian government that has been fixing prices. A deregulated market would allow different players to play. The government will have to simply put rules and allow freedom of competition to actually force prices to where they should be. That is not what we're seeing. This is a market where the government controls who imports petrol. This is a market where the government is the sole importer of petrol. And of course, you know, they give their papers to who it is that they want. All the calculations that bring the price to what consumers are paying today are determined by the government. In a deregulated market, the market forces will force prices there. Competition will force prices down. No, but all we've heard is Buhari's government telling us, oh, we are deregulated market, yet at other times they will tell us they are paying so and so and so and so. A deregulated market will be an honest market available to competition, and that is what will determine market prices. That we will accept. What we are seeing so far are government-determined outcomes.
Dr. Ononiju, if you look at it, it does look that every government has feared, especially when the minister spoke about the issue of subsidy removal. And they've, across the several years, we've seen the debate over subsidy. But this government said they're trying to move away from that. And look, this is not our fault. It's forced by the market. Can you blame this government for what Nigerians may, for example, suffer for a while, according to the minister, but he said, Nigerians will benefit in the long run?
Well, you understand this particular issue is simple about leadership. And the only tool you need to allow leadership to flow freely is trust. The Nigerian people do not trust the Buhari administration. And that's why you see, no matter what they say, that the market forces determined these prices right now, nobody believes them, because everywhere we know this government, they behave in ways to actually insert their hands in the pockets of the consumers. Allow free deregulated markets, simply make rules and allow competition to drive prices. That is what we will say is a deregulated market. Simply make the rules and allow competition to, determine prices. That is not what we're having. We're having prices determined by the government. We are having prices forced upon us by the different additions that the government adds. If you allow the market to become competitive and free, you will see that a lot of the add-ons that the government do add on that brings its prices to this ridiculous level would not be there. And that's why we're saying the government should stop their effective intrusion that have so far distorted the petroleum markets. I don't believe anything they say. Let them allow the markets to be free. Let them allow those who want to import to go in to import. If I am importing with government collaboration, of course, I can connive with the government officer to add several things up. And everything that we add with the government agreement will later on pass it to the consumers. But an honestly deregulated market will simply see an importer bring in petroleum product, and then, depending on how difficult things were for that man and whatever he puts in and what he's able to save, he will calculate the prices. You will never in a competitive market have one single price. No. People who bring the products in Lagos cannot sell the product for the same price as those who buy it in Maiduguri. Now, this is where this game is. That means the government is still involved in equalization. So you cannot say that the market is free. Allow a free market to exist. Petrol cannot be the same cost in Kano as it is in Port Harcourt. Why? The cost of transporting that petrol from Lagos to Kano or from Port Harcourt to Kano brings in something else. So how can the government now tell me that I am buying petrol in Abuja for the same cost as somebody in Apapa, and you tell me that the market is free? No, the market is not free. This is a government-regulated market, and what we are saying is all the markups the government put in are the reasons for the distortions.
Dr. Ononuju, can you tell us where else in the world where you have this kind of what you have described tonight playing out? For example, the APC government is saying that it's being courageous enough to remove subsidy. Just give us that thought in 30 seconds before we go and break.
Well, you know very well, one single price, if the government does not participate in distortion of the petroleum market, the price in Maiduguri will never be the same as the price in Lagos. That simply tells you there is still subsidy in it. The first thing that will make us to know that the government is no more involved in fixing prices and distorting the energy market, it's when prices are actually according to how those who bought it actually reflect when people are now retailing it. This is the game. So where in the world have you ever seen petroleum prices are the same, in a place of about 400 kilometers apart? It's not true. It's not the same. Price in Chicago is not the same as price in New York. It's not the same. Price in Manchester cannot be the same price as you have in Liverpool or London. It's not the same.
So Dr. Ononuju, you were saying that subsidy still subsists. But we go on a break. When we come back, we derate the conversation and we look at what is obtainable and the pain that Nigerians may be having, which the federal government says it's just temporary. What are the gains in the long run? We dig into that after this break, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. So, you might be buying petrol into your vehicle or to run your generator at a higher price. But the federal government says, no, it's not our fault because it's due to global price of crude oil and the fact that the market forces are in play. We're not doing so actively in the pricing and the modulation that you see over the last few years. If you look at the prices at how it varied from sometimes this year, maybe my producer can give us that information back on the screen, the prices of petrol over the last few months and how things have played out from the 1st of May up until this present moment. Some people will even tell you that we're not buying it as much, at this very price that have been fixed. In fact, it's higher in some places. So we're discussing the conversation about what the federal government has described as a temporary pain and a gain in the long run. In our Abuja studio is Dr. Kach Ononuju, a member of the PDP, an economist. We're expecting that Mr. Iko Sami will join us. We're told that he was held up in traffic at some point. He's a member of the APC, also an economic analyst. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Ononuju. You were saying that you do not agree that subsidy has been removed. But if you look at it, in some sense, when the federal government says there is going to be gain in the long run, do you agree with that statement of the minister?
Yes, there will be gain in the long run if the government is sincere. But right now, look at how much the thing was. When petrol went to its lowest price internationally, it didn't reflect in Nigeria. But the government was busy telling us there is no subsidy. So how come it's so expensive? What I'm telling you is the government right now is involved in taking money off the Nigerian people, either through corruption, which they will call you subsidy, or by themselves adding unnecessary source of cost on top of the total cost that we purchase petroleum for. And that's why I'm saying if the government actually wants to remove its hands from its continued distortion, and this is effective distortion of the petroleum market, you will notice that different importers, just like we have different products, they will bring in petrol, and all you will have is the chemical specification that whatever you bring must meet this particular chemical quality. If it comes in, it's not your business how much the man brings it in for. Then you will see that the cost of selling petrol in Port Harcourt and Lagos will definitely be very different from the cost of buying petrol from the Niger border or the Chadian border. And this is the problem. When you now have criminals at the Niger and Chadian border take our fuel and then start selling it in all of those places, there's no way you can say that the government can be trusted. Now, as I said earlier, the biggest business in this game is the absence of trust. Everybody knows very well that the Buhari administration right now is looking for every way to take money off Nigerians. More taxation, more extortion. Even they are putting their hands into that of churches to try to take money off them, seize their money. Well, look, how do we trust this government? Everybody's trying to outcompete each other in terms of corruption. And that's why we're saying the citizens are correct not to trust Buhari's administration. If you want to remove your hands from subsidy, take your hands off and allow for free import. set the chemical standards that the petrol that are being brought in must meet that given chemical specification. And that's enough. When they bring it in, whoever brings it, you do not have to now start giving lists as to who can import petrol or who cannot import. Because when you start conniving to give papers to who will import petrol, you can then give it to who you want, undermining the market and the ability of those who can actually get it cheaper not to participate. So how can you not say that you've removed your hands? The government's effective involvement in its active distortion of the petroleum market, for me, is the main cause of this distortion and the corruption in the petroleum sector.
Dr. Ononuju, we're having private interests who are putting up refineries. One is probably coming around in Edo State, and another one in Lagos State. When these come into full, when they come on stream, perhaps one of the references the federal government is making onto the long run benefit that we might be getting when the cost of production and the cost of refining has been, or importation has been cut down. Do you see light at the end of the tunnel?
Yes, it's a good thing. I am happy that local producers will now get into the petroleum refining business. That is good for us. Not only would we now have the available to us all the byproducts that come from local refining, we would also create jobs. We would also be able to keep a lot of our foreign exchange, because in the past 2-3 years, the Buhari administration paid out more money importing petrol than we actually earned from petroleum products. So all these are the reasons why we say government should get away from that business of importing petroleum products. Now, all we are asking, if you really say you are getting out of that game, distortion that we call subsidy, set the laws, set the standards for the chemical strength of what gets brought into the country, and then allow people to import. You don't have to stay in NNPC and say, no, 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 it is Abubakar or it's Emeka or it's Shegu that must bring it in. Allow those who can bring it in, who can compete. If bringing it in is fine, and then compared to those who are also doing the local refining, because all of us want the local refining. I'm aware. Bua just said the other day it's going to Akwa Ibom to do its own. There are other companies. I know about the one in Bayelsa. And of course, the Dangote's factory that will come up as a refinery in Ekpe. All those are very good for us. Never mind that Buhari, during campaigns, promised that every year a brand new refinery will be built. And just like all the other rhetorics that he's bandied about with no truth to follow them, we've seen that nothing this government says has turned out to be real. That's why it does not gain the trust of the citizens. So tell me, if Buhari had lied before about petrol, why should I now believe that Buhari administration has now changed? No, we don't want to trust them. If you want to show that you are going away from subsidy, let the market be free. Let the importation be free.
All right.
All you need to do, set the chemical standards for what gets brought in. And that's it. But where the government continues to pile extra money, all sorts of levies, all sorts of extra egunje on top of the landing cost, and then later on, you give us this price, which is actually more than double the real cost of petrol outside Nigeria, we're not going to believe what the government says.
Yeah. Dr. Catch Ononuju, a member of the PDP and an economist, there with the thoughts. Thank you so much, Dr. Ononuju, for your thought there. Unfortunately, Mr. Iko Sami, a member of the APC and also an economic analyst who is supposed to be with us in our Abuja studio, is unable to make it tonight. According to him, he was being held up in traffic. But that's how far we can go on tonight's program. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I'm sure Akimale. Bye-bye.